Good morning, friends, and welcome back to Centering for Lent. Today is Monday, March 7th, and that means that today we begin week number 5. This week we are exploring a Christian tradition known as Franciscan Spirituality. Similar to Ignatian Spirituality, which we covered back in week number 2, Franciscan Spirituality is named for the person who founded the movement, and that's a man named Saint Francis of Assisi. You may have heard of him before, but Francis was a monk way back in the 12th century, a Roman Catholic, and he received incredible fame and notoriety in the day simply by being an intensely spiritual and peaceful human being. That's a novel idea. It was not for taking selfies. Francis was known for his teachings and his abilities to provide wisdom and insight on the human condition and to really be a servant in the manner of Jesus in a way unlike any person really before him. He served the poor, was concerned with living in harmony with nature to a great degree. He's the one who's credited with coining the terms brother, sun, and sister moon. There are some prayers and poems even that make those words famous, but they were coined by Saint Francis of Assisi, and you've probably heard those before. Now today you may have seen statues of Saint Francis in somebody's garden. That's a really popular place to see a depiction of him. If you've seen a statue of a man in a robe with like a Friar Tuck looking haircut and with like birds surrounding him, it looks like he's standing in the square in Venice. That is Francis. You may have made a correlation already, now that we're talking about Francis, to the current Pope, Pope Francis. And if you've guessed and made that correlation, you are correct. Pope Francis has taken his papal name from St. Francis of Assisi, which is a really unique thing to do and somewhat controversial in the Vatican, because usually popes take the names of other powerful popes, like Innocent or Benedict or Pius. That's why you get Pope Pius the 15th or something like that, because they keep recycling the names. But he took the name of Francis, which has never been taken by a pope before. So our current pope has taken the name of a 12th century monastic peace and love hippie. This crazy world. Today for our practice, we're going to use a Franciscan practice that is called similar to Lectio Divina. It's called the 4 R's, which is slightly different than the Ignatian 4 R's that we looked at back in week 2. But we're going to use these 4 R's in conjunction with a scripture today from John 7:37 through 44. And we'll use those practices to open ourselves up to hear its wisdom and to sense God's presence with us in this living and active scripture. So with the 4 R's, I will read, that's the first R, read the passage slowly. Then offer a few reflection questions. There's a second R. Then invite you to respond to the scripture and to God. That's the third R. Then we'll take a few moments to just receive. That's the fourth R. To receive what God has for us today. So find a comfortable position. Feet flat on the floor if you're in a chair. Or find a comfy spot on the ground. Maybe use a pillow to get comfortable. And let's begin our practice today. Find your breathing rhythm now. Just feel yourself breathing as you come to be present in this moment. Become mindful and aware of yourself in your body. The fact that you have a body, so often we forget. Notice any sensations or tightness in your body, whether you feel cold or warm. Perhaps your eyelids are a bit heavy. Just notice these things. And notice them as you continue to slowly breathe, peacefully and steadily, inhaling and exhaling at a nice steady pace. And now, as you continue to breathe slowly and peacefully. A reading from John chapter 7. On the last day of the feast, the great day, Jesus stood up and cried out, "If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of their heart will flow rivers of living water." Now this he said about the Spirit, the ones who believed in him were to receive. Because as of yet, the Spirit had not been given, because Jesus had not yet been glorified. What part of this scripture stood out in your mind? What is God saying to you with this scripture today? Have there been times when you felt thirsty or parched in your spirit and you desired a drink? What is it that God desires to flow from each person's heart? What might this river of living water represent? How do you respond to this scripture? What emotions does it make you feel? Does God seem to be directing you or making you aware of a need within yourself with these words? Do you sense a resistance or a reluctance? Take a few moments now and talk with God. Respond and communicate the emotion that you are feeling at this moment. Now, as you continue to breathe deeply and slowly, receiving the air and the oxygen it brings, take a few moments to receive the message or the encouragement that God has for you today. What has inspired you about this scripture today? This image of the water? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What experience is it to drink the water that Jesus gives? On the last day of the feast, the great day, Jesus stood up and cried out, "If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of their heart will flow rivers of living water." I invite you to take a few moments now as we close our time and thank God for this moment and for our practice. Slowly open your eyes now. Be mindful of your breathing again. Slow and steady. Breathing in the peace and breathing out the anxiety. Breathing in the peace and breathing out the anxiety. As we come to the end of today's practice. Well, friends, that's the first practice for Franciscan Spirituality, and it's in the bag. Remember to join us tomorrow and every day this week, Monday through Friday, as we continue our centering for Lent and listening for the God of the universe to whisper a word of love into our hearts. Thanks for joining me, and have an awesome Monday. Shalom, friends.